Welcome to Myopia Defend Your Childhood. Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to our last episode of 2019, and thanks for everyone who has been listening to us all year. It has been an incredible year, in fact. Thousands of downloads, and everyone has been giving us really nice, positive feedback, so thanks. In 2020, we have so many exciting things to come back, including some old shows that you guys really liked on our feed. We are going to continue our new Patreon stuff with Here Be Tigers and Geekly Oddcast. If you don't know what that's about, check out the Patreon now. Right now we have free 12 days of Christmassy kind of stuff. And if you're getting this today, it comes out on January 2nd. I'll be performing with Cineprov, and we'll be riffing on the movie Lost Boys. So thanks for everything you guys have done last year, and we'll keep doing it this year, and hopefully we'll be growing because we want to keep doing good shows for you, and nothing tells us we're doing a good job like your support. Thanks, guys. Welcome to Myopia Defend Your Childhood. This week, we watched the Black Cauldron, and we did our first live stream. So thank you for everyone who tuned in. All 50 of you. 60 of you. Oh, goodness. I'm glad that Jared Surf at the Here Be Tigers podcast pushed us into finally doing something with Patreon. I think I created a Patreon for this podcast 4 years ago and did literally nothing with it. So, we do have a Myopia podcast thing. It's blank. It's nothing. It's a username that I then use to pay for other podcasts. So I'm glad we're doing something. And thank you for those of you who tuned in to listen. We answered some questions. We talked the whole time. I, gave cocktail recipes. And you can hear Daniel and Matt on that. We were all there.
All in Nick's basement with Disney Plus.
Yeah. So sponsor us Disney Plus or Nick's basement. Oh, well, I guess we should do this. On panel, we've got...
Hello, ladies. This is Daniel, and if you play your cards right, you're going to get munchings and crunchings.
Beautiful. And...
Matthew W. Quinn, who's going to be going to 3 Christmas parties this weekend with lots of munchings and crunchings to be had.
I like the double entendre there, Matt. Well done.
So we're talking about the Disney flop, disaster piece.
The Care Bears outgrossed this movie.
I assume there were some Nike commercials that outgrossed this movie. Daniel, you've done some Disremembered. Can you tell us a little bit about this time period in Disney?
Yes. Okay. So this was in the early 80s. Disney was in bad shape. They almost got bought out by our friends down the road, Coca-Cola. Yep. And it got to a point where the boardroom, specifically Roy Disney, was trying to run a Save Disney campaign where they got the CEO fired and they brought on a whole bunch of new people like Michael Eisner and Jeffrey Katzenberg. This had already been in development when that happened, so this was the first thing I think that Jeffrey Katzenberg oversaw, to completion anyway. He was like watching the rough cuts and demanding that they cut like 10 minutes of footage, which back in the day in animation... that just didn't happen.
Right.
I mean, if a scene was going to get cut, it was going to get cut very early, so you weren't going to waste time actually drawing everything. So this was really the first release. It cost, I checked on IMDb, like $40 million to make, and it grossed a little over $20 million.
Well, and let's just talk the pure capitalist politics of this thing. In that Katzenberg got to then say, I told you it was going to be a flop.
Yeah.
This is why you should go to our way of doing things. And... to their credit, the late 80s through early 90s, they were right about literally everything. And then what's his name died? The guy who was the president.
Yes. God, the helicopter.
Ronald Reagan. No,
the helicopter crash during a skiing trip.
Yeah. But regardless.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Katzenberg has this falling out famously with Eisner, and then goes on to make Shrek, which wins the Academy Award, stealing it out of the mouth of Disney.
Lord Farquaad is literally supposed to be Michael Eisner.
Right. In that way that Lorne Michaels is Dr. Evil. Right. Like, your former boss makes a great foe. This movie is a travesty of Disney filmmaking. And I say that not because anything is wrong with it,
other than it's what Disney does the worst, which is flatter other people.
This whole month is about traumatic Disney, right? And the reason that this was lost for a while, it got released in the 80s and was a huge flop, but they didn't put it on video for like 10, 15 years because it was so dark.
Yeah, that's the traumatic part. Like, I remember reading about this long ago, about like the scene where the Horned King is sucked into the cauldron at the end, and spoiler alert, and it's like you see his flesh like melting off him for a split second. I think there might be more flesh melting somewhere. Daniel, did you bring up like a lost and canceled thing?
There were scenes where it had some other people being turned into the skeleton army, and it showed their skin melting off.
Oh, by the way, Matt, up yours, buddy, because you were the one who said this was a traumatic movie. I didn't realize you'd never seen it.
Nope. I mentioned this on the live stream. I did interview Don Bluth and Gary Goldman at the Jewish Film Festival in Atlanta a few years ago about American Tail, and like the dark age of Disney did come up, and Black Cauldron, I think, was discussed.
Now, I don't say this as an insult, but I thought Don Bluth was Mormon.
He was.
He is.
Okay. Yeah. That must have been really cool to talk to him.
Oh, yeah. They were both real nice.
Well, I mean, but again, this movie as a public piece, I thought my vote was for Fox and the Hound, which I thought was very traumatic.
To me, that's more sad than traumatic.
It's fair, but I was traumatized. I mean, to me, this movie was just kind of boring. We all loved Labyrinth.
Yeah.
This reminded me more of Dark Crystal.
Yeah, I'm good. I'll probably defend this against you two, but even I started getting a bit tired about 2/3 of the way through.
But here's the thing. It was only 76 minutes long. How do you get boring in 76 minutes? They barely gotten to the monster part of Jurassic Park.
Well, here's another thing that I think a lot of people don't remember, and honestly, I miss this period too, but I've heard other people talk all about it. Fantasy, like Black Cauldron, like Lord of the Rings, that used to be the ultimate symbol of being just an absolute nerd. If you liked fantasy, that pretty much doomed you to being an outcast for life. It was for a niche audience. Fantasy seemed to be more about, well, we don't care about really making sense outside of that select group, and I think this movie has that mentality, frankly. It's really meant for a very limited group of people who already like the book series that it was based on.
Yeah, I've read the first book in the series. I don't remember if it was called The Black Cauldron or not. I remember we meet Hen Wen, we meet Terran. I don't think Ellen Way is in that one.
Hen Wen's a pig, by the way.
A psychic pig.
It's a Disney movie. How come Hen Wen didn't speak?
Everything else spoke.
I don't know. It beats me.
Well, and if he's psychic, he should be telling us the future.
Okay, maybe clairvoyant then, because he or she or it or whatever can find things using a pool of water to project images in.
Well, again, that's fine. Man, I can't be bothered. But he disappears for like 60% of this movie, and then at the end, right before the dramatic end scene, when say that might be important, he's just like, I'm going home. I'm going back to my home planet, Poochie. Like, come on, man. Okay, Daniel, we've gone too long. Give us a plot. Or, Matt, do you want to give us a plot?
I think Matt should do
Okay,
it.
the movie starts out with an ominous opening narration about a king so evil the gods feared him, and so they imprisoned him in a black cauldron that can create zombie warriors called the Cauldron-born. Cut to this farm, an old man and his kind of minion, Terran, who's the pig keeper. Terran wants to be a warrior, so he's like, terrorizing farm animals with a stick when he has to feed Hen Wen, who starts freaking the heck out. And it turns out that the Horned King, who's a skeletal figure of evil with glowing eyes, that might be why this is considered, another reason it's considered traumatic Disney, because he's kind of scary for a kids movie villain. He is the Horned King is looking for the Black Cauldron, and he's going to be looking for Hen Wen to help him find it. So Terran's responsibility is to take Hen Wen away from the farm to hide him from the Horned King, and trouble ensues.
And you want to know the most shocking thing about the movie? That narrator, that ominous narrator Matt mentioned, is legendary American film director and occasional actor John Huston.
Sometimes you need a new garage.
Or a bathroom.
He was 2 years away from death at this point.
Orson Welles was pretty close to dying, and he was Unicron.
That was literally the last thing he did.
Yeah, and John Huston didn't know he was 2 years away from death. I mean, unless he went down to the crossroads and, he was told so.
I seem to recall hearing about a movie he directed in the 80s. Might have been Preetzi's Honor, might have been something else, where he was hooked up to an oxygen tank the entire time.
Sounds right. Was it Ghost Can't Do It? Or no, that was, what's his name?
Oh, that is John Derek, is that right?
Yeah, that's right,
Oh,
that's
boy,
right.
Good Lord.
And Bo Derek was the one who was like nude and whatever.
Right.
Is that the one with Donald Trump in it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, of course it is.
He used to show up in the most random movies.
So apparently, I heard this in a commentary track for Home Alone 2. Every time they filmed at a Trump property in the 80s and 90s, which was a lot, right, because he owned everything before the bankruptcy. The requirement...
Which one?
All of them. He's been bankrupt 4 times. 3 times.
6.
6? Oh, I referred to one that's why there's that big hole in the Atlanta skylight, because he bought land and there's a pit there. Whatever.
Ironic.
Yeah.
In the contract, whenever you filmed at a Trump property, he had to film a cameo. The thing is, it gets edited out of most movies, but I guess Chris Columbus saw that scene and said, that's staying in Home Alone 2.
You know, at the time, that was a perfectly fine cameo because he was already kind of a well-known figure, and that wouldn't necessarily be obnoxious because, you know, it's all about
He just
Kevin
needs
in
to
New
point in
York.
one direction. That's exactly right.
It's as time's gone on that becomes a whole lot worse. By the way, he sold that hotel at a loss.
He did. Everything's at a loss. Listen to Trunk Inc., and they follow all the money he's lost.
Oh, good Lord.
Yeah, right.
Just remember, ladies and gentlemen, George Lucas is worth at least $1.5 billion more than him.
Hey, Steven, should I run for president? So Bulba could run for vice president.
Fucking hell, I'd vote for that ticket.
Couldn't be worse.
So I've decided to add to the Constitution the things that they meant to always be there, Steven. Did you know that droids are not protected in the First Amendment, Steven? Steven.
Did you know Greedo shot first originally in the 8th Amendment?
And it was his right to do so under the Second Amendment. I'm just saying, guys, you know, we should invade, you know, hashtag save Alderaan, you know.
So we've gone from talking about
Anything
John
other than this
Huston
movie?
to this. This is how this ended up.
Because this is a tremendous movie. It's a tremendous failure, that is. I assure you.
This movie could barely hold our attention. And if you listen to our stream...
Yeah, I kind of disappeared from the stream for most of it. I think my connection rebooted and I got muted.
Now, even beyond that, I was on my phone on the stream, so I'm not sure if anybody actually heard me. And if you did, I'm terribly sorry, but it starts out interesting, but it starts out in sort of the cliche fantasy thing. What do you guys think attracted Disney to this property?
They made like 6 books in that whole series, so...
Right, but there's a lot of stuff Disney could have bought out. Was Redwall around back this time?
It was.
Why didn't they go with this and not that?
That vaunted Welsh market. They wanted to appeal to the Welsh demographic.
Here's why you do a kid's book like Pinocchio or Bambi, right? It's a 10-minute story you tell your kids, and then you can evolve that into a movie. This, I presume, several hundred-page book is too much to make into a movie, right? Short stories make movies. Novels make miniseries. I think that's the Stephen King line.
First and foremost, before anybody tweets at us, I don't know if the original Pinocchio is a children's book necessarily.
I'm sure it was. I mean, like,
If you disagree, we'll send you to Pleasure Island to work in the mines.
Well, I mean, it works the same way as any of the Grimm fairy tales that they did, or you know, Hans Christian Andersen. Like, it's just, I forget, it's an Italian guy who wrote it. You know, these are little cute stories to teach a moral. That's all it is.
Well, and some of those stories got really dark. Like, I know in the book, the Lampwick character, they find him in the salt mines right before he dies from being overworked.
Yeah, and in Cinderella, the stepsisters cut off their heels so they fit the shoes. You know, when you're looking for happy tree friends, you don't look to the Grimm's fairy tales.
So you watched Into the Woods on PBS too back in the day.
I sure did. Into the Woods is the greatest one-act play that they turned into a 2-act play that didn't need to happen. Into the woods is find the thing to find the other thing. The I Wish song is literally called I Wish in that one. They nailed it. Hey, God, they nailed it.
Control, save, nailed it.
Yeah, exactly right. I haven't done that one in a while. Good callback.
Bringing sexy back.
I mean Bernadette Peters, but anyway.
Girl. Girl.
Some of what this reminded me of was kind of like if Disney was trying to do Dune.
Yes, absolutely.
He who controls the spice controls the universe.
Well, the Freemen are the future of the galaxy, huh?
Desert power.
The means of production should be in the hands of the working class, Goofy.
But yeah, I mean, that's another like epic, almost kind of biblical in a way, fantasy
Yeah,
series.
he's like Space Muhammad.
Basically, yes. And I could kind of tell just based on what this movie was doing, that's what the author was going for.
The problem is, this feels like the telephone game where a person said a story and then a person told that person the story and then another person told the story and then an animator had it illustrated at the speed they were telling it. It's such a mess. Also, we need to talk about Don Bluth for a second. I love me some Don Bluth. I think we've done 3 of the movies on this.
Land Before Time, Titan AE, Secret of the Nim.
Yeah, 3.
And then 2 more because we've done American Tail and Fievel Goes West.
He didn't do Fievel Goes West.
He was still, I guess, a creator on it. So that's 4.
Yeah.
4.5. They do so much cribbing from Don Bluth in this movie. The direct shots, the single face, the 3/4 profile that then turns into a straight direct shot, the weird tussling of hair.
Who was it that said this looked like Dragon Lair? Was it you?
Me. That was
You.
absolutely
All right.
right. It does. Because it's just like, what's the princess's name that I couldn't be bothered?
Ellen Way or something.
Okay. She does this thing where she's like off the screen pans across her, she ends up mid-screen as though she's been flying through like a Star Trek character. Her hair tussles and she goes, "Look out that way, Gurgen," or whatever. And then it cuts back away from her because even though she's not a damsel in distress, it's like the director doesn't realize she's not a damsel in distress. She does all of her shit off camera and then comes in and says, "I was doing stuff the whole time."
When we first meet her, she pretty obviously saves Terran. He's sitting there in the dungeon being all despairing. All of a sudden, one of the floorboards start to shift, and out she pops. So you realize the Horned King has subcontracted his dungeon security to like the worst people ever. If one of his prisoners has got her own tunnel network throughout the whole castle.
Here's the thing that gets me. I didn't understand, and it could be that I'm just an idiot. I know a lot of people would say that. I didn't understand like how the Horned King fit into the lives of these characters at the opening. Were they his subjects and he was just a tyrant, or
I think he wanted to get the pig.
I get that, but like, why was he a threat? He seemed to exist in a completely different place than they did.
Well, Terran seems to want to fight the Horned King, and he's pantomiming that the goat is the Horned King, so it could be he's a concern for these people's country. He just hasn't gotten to their territory yet. I mean the fact that I'm having to speculate so much does not bode well.
I was going to say, give Matt credit here. I agree with you, Daniel. There's not much explanation for A, anything, and B, curse that gobble-necked little man, but that's what George Lucas gets.
Yes. In the first Star Wars, there's that scene where you can tell Tatooine's kind of the back end of the galaxy, but they at least know about the Empire, they know about the rebellion, and Luke has opinions on the matter.
I've said this before, I'll defend myself here as a film person. He's not a good director. He's a better storyteller. He's interested in his androids, but if you watch Star Wars A New Hope, which is a masterpiece, I'm not going to say it's not, a good director would make sure that Carrie Fisher isn't speaking in an English accent whenever she's around an English actor, which is a lot. However, George gets that scene right where Luke is on Tatooine. He wants to go to Tashi Station. His parents say no. He goes out to check the droids, and he's standing on a hillside looking at the setting suns. And you realize there's a world he knows about but can't access.
Right.
This child, who is presumably looking for his call to adventure, is chasing a fucking pig that none of us care about.
Well, he's an apprentice to that Bard character, right?
Who's a fuckhead.
There's the old man. I think the old man and the bard are two different people who look a lot alike.
Okay, that's it.
And if I recall correctly, at the end of the movie, we cut back to the old man who he's the apprentice of, and he's staring into a pond with the pig, and they're like, he's stunning, he's done it, he's done it. And you're just like, okay, crazy pervert. You're just asking the pig to project naked women all the time.
He's the sort of man who would drop his pants and sing Old Gray Mare in the middle of the town square.
Old gray mare, she ain't
What used to be, ain't what used to be, ain't what used to be.
Oh, Krusty, how's it going? Well, he's giving it away for free.
And now, the crazy old man singers.
Crazy old man, he ain't what he used to be, ain't what he used to be.
And at some point, he loses the pig and encounters Gurgi.
Yes.
Gurgi's a piece of shit.
If Wilford Brimley got a terrier pregnant, that's Gurgi.
Please, if he got a Schmeagle pregnant.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's like a little anthropomorphized puppy creature with the Wilford Brimley mustache.
Yeah. Boris Johnson hair.
And a desire to steal everything not bolted down.
And a fetish for crunchings and munchings.
Oh, gross.
And Taron just verbally abuses him constantly.
This was going to be the character that they wanted to sell plushes at Disney parks for.
Yes, there was. But again, everything about this movie doesn't make sense because he kind of helps and kind of doesn't. He shows up the whole time but doesn't have anything to do. He's not funny, so he's not really the comic relief, but he's maybe supposed to be.
I think he's supposed to be the comic relief, and he's the one who sacrifices himself to destroy the Black Cauldron at the end.
Spoiler alert.
But then
For a movie that's 40 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and then what's his name? Taron.
He bargains with the witches, one of whom is lusting after the bard, which is pretty funny.
There's like a little encapsulation of how this movie works from an animation standpoint. It doesn't. It involves the witches.
Yes.
There's a scene where they break into their cabin and it's filled with like people they've turned into frogs. So they let all the frogs out accidentally. And so the witches threaten to turn those three into frogs, right? They turn the bard into a frog, and at one point he immediately goes down the Rubenesque swan's dress. And that's supposed to be the visual gag, I guess, which, okay, Disney, that's actually rather brave for you. Yeah. But at the same time, there were so many scenes where the perspective didn't work. Like, I couldn't tell how big characters were compared to other characters. And at some points, the bard frog was like this giant frog-looking thing, and at other times it was tiny, so they could get that visual gag to work.
The joke was, at the time, I mean, again, listen to the live stream, but Daniel and I were talking about, is this more Ralph Bakshi or Don Bluth? Because at various points it was different things, but this character is straight out of Ralph Bakshi.
Oh, yeah.
She's not only busty, but it's like liquid. It's floppy, flowy, lava lampy. And then when
and she's horny as hell for the bard.
Well, she's a sitcom character. She's like, a man! And because they've been alive for more than 2,000 years is the joke, which is even weirder. But then when the frog lands in her cleavage, it like molds around her. It's just, again, it's, I think you said, no, you're wrong. It's John Waters at this point. But you're right. Like this is a weird turn for Disney because she is in a comedy. This is not a comedy movie. This is someone from a different genre. It's very bizarre, and hence John Waters.
You're right. Well, plus the witch kind of looked like Divine.
It did look like Divine. Appropriately Ursula.
Yes.
Right.
What was that one scene early where they go into a tavern and there's another like really busty Rubenesque woman? Yes.
Speaking of, my goodness.
The minions like big butts and they cannot lie.
Yeah.
Well,
the little creeper guy can't deny.
His name is literally Creeper. It reminds me of a similar movie, which you pointed out was in production at the same time, where there's a burlesque scene in The Great Mouse Detective, which, again, we don't have John Waters in, but we have Vincent Price, right? Let me be good to you.
Better movie,
and one we've already done, and it shows the problem with this movie, by the by. I know Matt's thing about this movie, or in movies that we do in general, is a world has been created, and he, as a creative person and a talented one at that,
oh, thank you,
doesn't care about the movie. He's more interested in fixing the world that the movie exists in. That's what this is. And it's an interesting world. Not that this movie isn't, but it is.
Yeah, the movie was pretty good, except about 2/3 of the way through, I started getting very tired.
Well, I mean, is it really that interesting a world? So much of it just seemed to be, okay, they borrowed that from Lord of the Rings, they borrowed that from Celtic mythology.
I will say it's interesting, but we saw the Cliff's Note version of it. There's magic. We don't know what that magic is. We know that there are witches. We don't know why. We know that there's a magical sword that appears. We don't really know its powers. It just can cut through things when it decides to.
Oh, yes. This movie's version of Sting, which is a sword Taron has that's like as big as he is.
Again, it's based on the Cliff Notes of Lord of the Rings.
And it's psychedelic, and he can use it to intimidate witches and smash and block blows from minions who all have permanent 5 o'clock shadows.
And cut through cauldrons.
And cut through chains, and cut through gates, and cut through everything. And then it doesn't work for some reason. We don't know why. It's like Spider-Man 3 where they lose their power. Right? I don't have an answer for you.
I thought that was Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, I thought
You're
so
right.
too.
The better one.
Yeah, the better one.
I
Exactly.
mean, but again, Matt, that's why I can understand why someone like you would be more fond of this movie than Daniel and I. And why Daniel and I would like The Great Mouse Detective. Because, frankly, it's a very simple plot. I don't need to know why mouses can talk, why a mice world exists, and why a human world exists parallel to it, because the plot is very simple. Tragically here, you have to understand all that stupid complexity.
The Horned King will punish you for saying that.
Well,
Who could care? What are his powers?
what is-
Well, he's an anthropomorphic skeleton with burning eyes who chokes out Creeper a lot.
Fantastic.
so
Who
he's
gives
an
a
Ozzy
shit?
Osbourne cover. Good for him.
Yeah, exactly. He hasn't killed Creeper. Is he that powerful? Who knows? If we went through
But if he
someone-
killed Creeper, who would he abuse?
Good question. Because he doesn't have enough power to have anyone else follow him.
Well, he's got the 5 o'clock shadow gang.
Great. Kill one of them. Prove to me that he's powerful enough to kill a person. Why are we afraid of someone who's just creepy looking? We shouldn't be afraid of ugly people. The Hunchback of Notre Dame taught me that. Also, that's who she reminded us of, Esmeralda.
Oh, yeah,
The busty
yeah.
barmaid.
Yes.
Yes.
Similar outfit.
Yes.
Yeah, only about 20 years older and twice her size.
Oh, speaking of, though, remember the Disney cycle is what, like 4 years for an animated movie? Something like that, you were saying?
Something like that.
If this woman looked like Divine, Little Mermaid was 89, buddy. What if we hired someone who could actually do that instead of just being racist? Nah, let's just draw her. And what
Well,
if she-
also, Divine, I think, had died by the time Little Mermaid came out.
And then the guy masturbating in the corner, who may or may not have been Tim Burton, goes, "But what if she has tentacles?" What? Hey, that sweaty guy has a good idea. What if she did have tentacles, like a squid?
No,
there's just tentacles.
To be fair, I don't think that actually would have been Tim Burton at that point because he was off making Batman, I think. But
By 89, yes, of
Yeah.
course. Which is a masterpiece. Edward Scissorhands is before?
after
After. What was before that?
Beetlejuice,
Also a masterpiece.
it was fun. I
Okay,
wouldn't
fine.
say it's a masterpiece, but
I would say out of 10, again, episode we've done, out of 10, Beetlejuice is a 7 or 8? 7?
I put it between 6 and a 7.
Okay, fine. We'll give it a 7 then.
Okay.
Split the difference. Batman 89, though. 9 or 10?
Ooh, that one was really good.
Do you like it better than Batman Returns?
When I first saw it, I certainly did. I'd have to rewatch both back to back now, but yeah, I probably think I'd still enjoy that more.
The first Batman I've seen more, so I like it better, but I think Returns is the better movie.
But we digress.
In a good way, man. Those are also previous episodes. You can look them up, and those are the first 2 movies I bought in 4K. So if you want to watch Sudsy, Batman Returns, it is a Christmas
Hey,
movie.
I've got the Christmas gift to myself, the complete Twin Peaks from Z to A set.
Ooh.
It's got the 4K disc of the pilot and that episode from season 3.
Oh, yeah.
That was like there was no dialogue in it. It was all just
Yeah,
images of nuclear bombs going off. Yeah, fun times.
Lynch. For you. Only for you, I guess. Or no, I know Matt has seen this too, so this is not against him. I had a student the other day, and she's dating a new boyfriend.
Oof.
And they were exchanging favorite movies. And she had never seen Fight Club before. And she comes into class and goes, "Dr. Hoffman, I have questions." I saw Fight Club for the first time, and it's the most amazing film I've ever seen. She's 17. Give her a break. And we talked about it for like 20 minutes. And I'm like, I love it when kids discover real film. You know, I mean, there are problems with Fight Club. I don't think it's, and I think, frankly, a lot of people, and I even brought it up. I'm like, look, here's the thing. Would you have dated someone like Tyler Durden? And she goes, what do you mean? I'm like, well, he's hyper masculine. He's a mess, but he's a good looking dude. And she goes, totally. And I'm like, that's the point.
Yeah.
It's toxic masculinity at its finest. Like, you have a washed up guy who doesn't literally get a name in the movie, and Tyler Durden is that guy. He smells of musk and testosterone. And she goes, I know, and that's what's hard about the movie. I'm like, That's
Yeah.
the point.
That's why I worry about high school students who are introduced to that movie, and I know we talked about it back on that episode, is it's a great movie, but everybody, if you're not careful, they fall in love with Tyler Durden. He's the villain. He is the bad guy. He's evil.
It's the same thing with De Palma we've talked about before. The masculine characters are the heroes because they're horribly flawed. It's like Scarface. The masterpiece scene is the one people forget, where he has a gun in each hand and he face plants in the cocaine, and he comes out of it, and for the rest of the movie, before he dies, there's just dust all over him.
Controversial opinion, that version of Scarface, because it's a remake, is the best adaptation of The Great Gatsby that's ever been made.
Yeah, the problem is they get the color scheme wrong. He should have been wearing a green shirt instead of a red one.
There you go.
Tony, like, you don't let men around me. Do you want to fuck me? Do you want to fuck me, Tony? 'Cause it's a good movie that I never need to see again. I like the
And so
movie.
that's why the Horned King has Ellen Way locked up
Yeah.
to keep men away from her.
Well, because whenever she moves in slow motion for some reason, so it's weird.
And she's got a little flying magical thing that goes around with her.
Now, she was
She has a
referred...
golden snitch that disappears for 2 acts of the movie, you mean?
She was referred in two different ways. I mean, if she introduces herself as a princess, but then later on when they're being confronted, they're all mocking the I think it was the witches. They're all mocking the characters, like, oh, look, a washed-up bard, an assistant pig watcher, and they didn't call her a princess. It was something like a random wench or something.
Well, I mean, if she's nobility, calling her a peasant is really insulting.
Well, that's the thing, though. I'm not sure if she really was nobility, or am I missing something?
I think in the book she is, but it's kind of complicated.
All right, cool. In the book, in the movie, besides her word, do they say anything?
Not really.
But what
Okay.
about the TV trope? Do they say anything?
I haven't been to TV tropes this time.
Matt, it's just, again, it's not on the screen. There's nothing on the screen that expresses any of this shit, other than she has a tizzy, which, frankly, she should.
Yeah, Taron kind of goes on a power trip about midway through the movie.
Well,
It's a bit full of himself.
It's kind of the same problem that Star Wars had with Princess Leia. They only really applied the princess title to her to make her seem more like the damsel in distress.
But she fights back the whole time.
That's
this
true.
woman turns it on and off. And again, that's why it reminded me more of Dark Crystal, where the gender roles and everything go in flux.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That's the only thing I remember from Dark Crystal still.
That movie is super boring. I mean,
Just watch the the Netflix show Age of Resistance. It's much better.
Cool.
yes, you're right. Just watch it. It doesn't make the movie better. Guys, online, I know we've been harassed for this. Again, I have a bunch of Twitter followers who don't listen to the episode. They're just, like, harassing me, which is fine. Twitter is just made for making people assholes.
Maybe if your Twitter was correct, Nick, I'd stop harassing you.
Yeah, hashtag Greta. But the thing about all of this is, remember, guys, if it's not in the movie, I should never have to care. That's what the thing about movies is. It's a visual media. I don't care if the whole thing about the animatrix is explained in a 12 comic book series. I don't care if I have to play the video game before to understand the whole thing. If I sit down in a theater and I'm paying $13, the story better be fucking contained.
Yeah.
Man. If
This
Obi-Wan...
is 1985. You're probably paying $5.
Thank you, Matt, for missing the point.
That was the day.
Yeah. If I need... Like, if they have to hand me, like, George Lucas's personal podcast to explain what happened in episode 3, I'm not going to listen to it, man.
That's what I've always said kind of about the Marvel movies, is because so many of them are tied into each other, and so many of the movies are just, they basically exist to promote the next one.
Yep.
And it's frustrating after a while.
If you put in Iron Man, it's actually a movie start to finish.
Oh, Iron Man's great.
And some are better than others, but most of them, you could just watch. Kenneth Branagh missed that note.
He misses a lot of notes.
He sure does. Like, I shouldn't cheat on my wife when she's a gorgeous woman that's going to divorce me. Oh, whoops, now I'm single again.
I still feel like we need to discuss just what exactly about this was attractive to Disney. Like, did they really feel that they needed to enter the fantasy market?
Well, I mean, they're all this fairy tale stuff's fantasy already, and you can wedge a lot of the classic tropes in there. You know,
Yeah.
Gurgi is the comic relief sidekick, hero's journey with Taron.
You know what?
Ellen Way is a somewhat less useless female character.
That's completely fair. I get that, but this is a lot harder fantasy. I sound like I'm describing cocaine. It's like, you want the hard fantasy? No. I got the hard fantasy.
I will fix both of your statements, which is, at that point, Disney did not know what they were. What Disney needs to be... I mean, and Candace and I, my wife and I, have had the same discussion about Frozen 2 because we have a toddler and that's all we've watched. But as much as people in this table hate Frozen, the first one, is that Disney story. It's a straight-up fable. A kid has magical powers. They make it more subtly lesbian story. The second one is a Joseph Campbell hero's journey, and there's characters for characters' sake. The most interesting character, though, has to be pushed aside so that they're B-plots because they are action figures. And that makes it a mess, right?
I want to clarify one thing because I know Nick was pointing at me. I don't hate it. It had just, when I saw it, had been hyped up as the greatest thing since cameras were invented. And I'm like going, no, it really wasn't.
Daniel,
it's a straight Disney movie.
Let it go.
Yeah, right. Frankly, it's a straight Disney movie. And I think people liked it in a lot of ways because it was back to form. It's a straight fable with kids with magical powers. There's a difference. And for girls out there, the men don't matter.
Yeah.
Right? They solve it on their own. It's sisters doing it for themselves, which, frankly, about fucking time.
Plus, it has the guy from Crazy Ex-Girlfriend in it as Sven. Is that his name?
Sven is the reindeer. You mean Kristoff.
Kristoff, yes.
And for me, who's more of a theater nerd than Daniel, it's the King of England from Hamilton. You'll be back, won't you? Is Jonathan Goff.
Oh.
And he's very funny in that.
I know they had Alan Tudyk doing the Arrested Development chicken dance in one scene.
He was. Josh Gad from everything that's comedy. And from, again, it's a theater show because Elsa is the star of Wicked.
Yeah.
Jonathan Goff is from Hamilton. And Olaf, who is Josh Gad, at the time was in Book of Mormon.
That was so great when they did Jon Stewart's sign-off and he showed up and he's like, I'm now a comedy superstar. Yeah, with 8-year-olds.
Yes, exactly right. Kristen Bell had to dress up as Idina Menzel's character for Halloween because her kid wanted to be Anna, which is great. Great because Kristen Bell is a goddamn national treasure.
Do you think that was her own personal bad place?
Maybe. But all that to say, Disney shines when you take a very simple property, an understandable property, and then make it Disney. This had so much stuff going on to me, it felt like a mess. Right. I
mean, it really did feel like a couple of years before this, Ralph Bakshi, speaking of, released Fire and Ice, which was a straight fantasy story. Yep. And that was more of a cult property, too. But somebody saw that and decided, all right, that's what Disney needs to be.
Yeah, this is better animation than Fire and Ice. Fire and Ice is the world's most violent Hanna-Barbera cartoon. Black Cauldron has better quality animation, I think.
I don't disagree. Yeah, it's better quality animation, but the plot, though, you could be the most talented painter in the world, but if you're painting the most boring things, what's the point?
To quote two people, I've actually two quotes that explain this. My buddy Kyle said, remember, Star Trek is always to prove whether or not human morality works in space. Right? That's what fantasy is. That's what sci-fi is. And I'm going to summarize Disney Plus right now. Their description of Star Wars A New Hope is a farm boy rescues a princess and destroys a fortress. That's it. That's their description.
I'm feeling very Kurosawa right now.
Because literally he plagiarized
a whole bunch of Kurosawa stuff.
Well, and specifically Hidden Fortress. Right. And then Carrie Fisher goes, but what if Hidden Fortress had jokes? But my point is, good fantasy and sci-fi is a very simple plot. If you need more than a sentence and a half, you're wrong. This movie needs a paragraph to explain the plot. Therefore, it's too complicated for a 75-minute movie, and it feels like a mess.
Now, I do want to try and bring it back into the theme. This is supposed to be about traumatic Disney movies, right?
It was supposed to be.
Right.
Turned out weird, awkward movies.
Well, does anybody see how, like, the scene with the Horned King getting sucked into the cauldron or anything, how that could be traumatic?
Well, it definitely sucks.
Well, my mom took me to see Snow White when it was in theaters. I was probably about 3, and apparently I was terrified of the witch. So a little kid would find the Horned King very frightening.
This movie, I think, was the first Disney PG movie back in the day. Before then, they were all G.
And when was PG-13 invented?
Around 80, I think Gremlins was the first PG-13 movie, and that came out in 84, I think.
Because didn't you say in the discussion that Black Cauldron was almost rated R?
I lied. Red Dawn was the first PG-13 movie. Gremlins was just the thing that kind of proved you needed a PG-13 rating. I'm sorry, Matt. What was the question?
I thought you had said Black Cauldron was almost rated R.
Potentially, they were worried about it because I think when it was originally in development, PG-13 didn't exist. So if they went too overboard, it could have been R.
And that's why they removed the scene with all the flesh melting, and therefore removed the reason people would watch it.
Right.
Daniel and I have talked about this before, about how truly, quote-unquote, culturally insensitive Disney should be. And
wait, how culturally insensitive Disney should be?
Well, with Disney Plus, how edited those clips should be.
Oh, right.
I would love to see that. Like, if we could just say, show me the producer's cut, or the director's cut. I guess the producers took this shit out. Because I would like to see it. For those of you who don't know, generally there is a scripting phase in animation, then there's a storyboard phase, and then there's an animatic phase where it's kind of like sketch outlines and very brief, and then they animate it. So the fact that Katzenberg looked at this and said, you can't do this, shows that he was willing to take a severe financial hit to make it work.
Yeah.
You know, again, I learned this from watching Simpsons shit, and that's just TV shows. And The Simpsons is good quality animation, but the one thing that even a Disney dumpster fire does is have incredible animation.
No, they definitely do. Even at their worst, the animation looks great. Except, I don't know, by the 70s they were cutting corners, so in stuff like Robin Hood, I'm not as big a fan of the animation in there, simply because it looks like everything else.
Yeah,
well,
that's why
you've seen those clips, right?
Yeah, and that's why Bluth and Goldman left Disney, because they were cutting corners and bean counting and producing crap.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and again, it's an artistic project. You don't want someone who's nickel and diming and trying to make more profit than art. And which is why I think Pixar's gone downhill.
They have.
I like Toy Story 3-ish. I mean, it's good, but it's just, by the fourth one, you're just like, stop milking the cow, man.
I haven't even seen the fourth one.
I didn't either.
I was kind of skeptical about the third one because it's pretty much a remake of the second one.
Yeah, it's just like, but what if we made it 30% sadder? And people think sad equals good movie, which is even more of a shame. You can have a masterpiece that's a comedy, man. Animal House and Caddyshack will be all-timers.
Wait, you didn't cry when the golf course blew up?
Yeah,
I cried.
It was tragic the way they hopped on Pop. All right, Sudsy, wrap us up. What do you think?
Okay. I kind of want to go home and just watch Fire and Ice and see which one I like better.
What's the one he did called, like, America?
Oh, American Pop?
Yeah.
American Pop's a goddamn masterpiece.
You want to talk about jiggles that don't mean anything.
Yeah, but I mean...
girl.
Hey, you know what? I'll watch American Pop 10 times before I watch this again. I'm actually a fan these days of when Disney doesn't make a Disney movie. Like, when it's not just a straight musical that's toyetic and focused on the marketing. There's some times where that turns out in interesting things, but like we did 101 Dalmatians on here, which has like one musical number and that's it, and it was perfectly charming.
I mean, you want to talk about a diss track? Cruella de Vil is an all-timer, man.
Dude, Eazy-E wasn't that vicious to
No!
Dr. Dre.
Wait, now I'm imagining the Bard, the Horned King.
Do it!
Yep, why not?
He's a bard. He doesn't sing a goddamn song.
He keeps threatening to put people in songs.
I admire the fact that Disney tried something new. The animation still looks good. But even though they tried something new, they didn't succeed. So I kind of understand why they went back to the older formulas for like Little Mermaid and stuff. I don't know what they needed to do, but I wish they had turned the material into something more interesting.
Bravely bold Sir Owen from Camelot.
Bravely bold Charon, who got a character arc.
Yeah.
Barely.
He was chasing a pig named Henwened.
And was kind of a bit of a prat.
Yeah, I mean, like,
and
there's just nothing there.
And then he traded his sword to bring back the dead comic relief.
He was not in the least bit scared to get mashed into a pulp.
Oh, to have his eyes got out, or his elbows broken.
That would have been a fun Disney fantasy movie.
But just to have the bard do that, to sing constantly, and it's something, frankly, that they fucked up in another Disney movie we did, Atlantis. So, Matt, what was your thoughts?
Our friend Lauren, he said that he heard Disney had gotten the movie rights to the Chronicles of Prydan. That's a whole series. The Black Cauldron was the first one. Back, he said that remakes are for if the concept was good, it was executed poorly. The chance to do it right. The Chronicles of Prydan, like 6 books, this whole mythology. This could be Disney's Lord of the Rings.
Could have been,
especially since Chronicles of Narnia didn't do so well. They should take that giant river of money they're swimming in these days and make a new Black Cauldron that's much better and tells a better story.
I'm going to modify what Matt said and agree with him. They should make that, and then it will bankrupt them, and then hopefully they'll lose some of that money. This was a mess. It never needed to be made. I don't even know anything Matt just said. I know he looked up the books. He said he read some of them, and I'm not going to argue with that. This movie is such a waste of everyone's time. It feels too much plot with nothing to gain. Too much of this movie is based around a boring premise that no one could possibly care about. And guess what? No one was paying attention. Like, we pitched this out to the people who were live streaming with us, and no one watched along with us because who could freaking be bothered?
It's on Disney Plus if you really want to watch it.
And you know where you're going to be? Disappointed.
Yeah, you'll be like watching The Mandalorian again for the 8th time.
The thing about The Mandalorian is, it's very simple. Sci-fi does not need to be complicated. If you're writing sci-fi and you're spending a page and a half explaining your religion, it's too much. Remember, Obi-Wan's explanation of the Force is it flows through everything we do. It flows through you right now. That's 3 sentences. You're done. If it's taking more than that, who could possibly be bothered?
Midichlorians.
Oh,
that's not him.
That is a good point, though. I mean, that's kind of why this doesn't work, is because instead of being simple, they tried to do the prequel thing and just explain everything in such a nonsensical way.
You listen to De Palma, you cut that shit out. De Palma was right. People just want their romantic fantasy, right? And that's why the prequels are terrible. Some of the prequel stuff is fine. Duel of the Fates is one of the best songs John Williams has ever done. And there are some good fights. The movies are god-awful garbage. This movie needs to be simplified. If all he was doing was rescuing the princess, you could give me garbage. But half of this movie is dialogue. It's exposition. You start out with a green screen, and then the green screen explains shit. And then everyone along the way explains shit. This kid apparently has never heard of anything in the world he lives in. My God, who could be bothered? The Black Cauldron deserved to lose money. And Matt was right. They should make 30 movies about this, and then Disney will finally stop buying up everything.
Wouldn't that be something?
That would be something. Don't watch this. Don't. There's so much better stuff on Disney Plus. Watch some horrible Disney version of a Lifetime movie. It's got to be better than this. I don't know why this movie scratched me the wrong way. It's just everything Disney does that annoys me in a single film.
I'm not going to argue with you on that.
By the way, I hope you enjoyed Mickey's Christmas Carol. Starting in January, we are doing a movie for our Patreon feed. So tune in for the classic, beginning the new year, classic heartwarming film, Alien, where a young Sigourney Weaver just can't deal with her job one day. And, a powerful woman rises to the top.
Well, it's because all the men she's working with are fuck-ups.
Yeah, they are 100%. And we will be doing the entire Alien series, whatever we decide to define that as, until probably that summer. And then we'll pick another film franchise, only to match the majesty that was Mission Briefing.
You're not going to make me watch Resurrection, are you?
Oh, we are. And we're going to watch Prometheus, and we're going to watch AVP, probably 1 and 2. Though we've already done the first.
Those are probably better than Covenant.
No, they are not.
And we're going to do Covenant. And then come midsummer, we will be asking you what film franchise you want to do, but only if you participate with the Patreon. So with that, happy holidays, whatever you choose to celebrate. Christmas is past us. New Year's is coming. Solstice has happened. Happy everything. Happy Chris Mahana Kwanzaa Don Wally. And we will see you into the new year. And signing off, of course, on panel we had
Matthew W. Quinns. Check out Little People, Big Guns.
Check out thecornercritic.wordpress.com. I just put up the huge article about the best movies of the 2010s.
And I am Nick Hoffman, host of Myopia Defend Your Childhood, host of the Hoffmann Podcast Experiment, and riffer on Cineprov. God, and January 2nd, God help me, we're doing The Lost Boys with Keifer Sutherland and, among others, Alex Winter. And God bless Alex Winter, because he's going to be the sidekick to the third Keanu Reeves movie coming out in 2020. Thank you, all of you, for making Cineprov and Myopia and all of our side projects, according to Quinn and the Corner Critic, a massive success in 2019. Thank you for motivating us to keep doing these riffs and all of these Myopia things and bringing us out to our basement, even through a move and an annoying toddler who sometimes wants to be on mic herself, who, God bless her and her adorableness, should not be on mic yet because all she wants to talk about is the candy she got from Santa at this point. You've supported us for 50,000 downloads at this point, so God bless you, everyone. Thank you, guys.
Myopia Defend Your Childhood is a product of Dude Letter Podcasting. It is hosted by Nick Hoffman, produced by Nick Hoffman, Daniel Suttis, and Matthew Quinn, and edited by Daniel Suttis. Our theme song is Surf Shimmy by Kevin MacLeod from Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons license by attribution